Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of DotaAlchemy.com. And in this video, what I want to do is take a look at this Evil Geniuses versus Plus Ultra replay and take a look at Arteezy's Lone Druid. The reason that I want to check out this replay is because I'm considering switching to carry from offlane in this patch just because I've played it quite a bit in pubs and it feels really solid for my playstyle. So this replay analysis that I'm doing of Arteezy's Lone Druid is going to be 100% genuine, things that I'm looking for to play this hero in pubs and try to gain a bunch of MMR essentially with this hero. So anyway, without further ado, let's check out the replay. So as the game starts, Arteezy purchases 6 tangos, 2 stacks of tangos, a branch which presumably is going to be used to consume for a little bit of extra tango regen, a slipper of agility for some extra base damage in the laning stage, and then it'll build into a wraith band, which he'll probably build 3 of just considering the current trend, and then most importantly he built a stout shield on the bear. So a lot of the time back in the day people would go for a quelling blade on the bear just because it gives that raw damage. And at level 1 you have a massive amount of last hitting power between your Lone Druid and the bear, but it just doesn't seem like you need that anymore with the bear buffs. This thing is strong enough at level 1, and really the only risk is that it's going to die. And in this game he is playing against a 4 range lineup with just a Sand King as the melee hero. So basically he's going to have that bear right clicked in the lane and he wants it to be healthy so he doesn't have to utilize that resummon, just so that way he can keep harassing and last hitting with it. One way that you can beat a Lone Druid is you can harass his bear down, he resummons a new one, and then you harass the second one down to the point that he can't use it to last hit, he has to send it back to base, and it takes like 30 seconds to a minute where you can essentially kill the Lone Druid and punish the Lone Druid. The stout shield is going to avoid that. So the first thing that I want to point out about Arteezy's laning stage is just something with how he micros the bear. If you look at the way the bear is last hitting, when he S cancels with the hero, so the hero is canceling his auto attack, so is the bear. So that indicates that he's microing both the bear and the hero together. And there's 2 ways that he could possibly be doing this. From what I've seen in this replay, is he could be using the Unify Unit Orders with control, and that is in the hotkeys, or sorry, that's in the options, regular options, and then it's up here in the top left, Unified Unit Orders with control, which essentially, if you hold control, you micro everything at once. Sometimes he moves the bear back as well, and without selecting the hero, and he's still not using the box select to do that, so that would indicate to me that maybe he's using the Unified Unit Orders with control, or he has a control group for both the bear and the hero, and then he also has a control group for strictly the bear and one for strictly the hero. So he's either doing it with control groups, he's not box selecting because I can see his mouse and it doesn't look like he's doing that. So he's either using the control groups or he's using the Unified Unit Orders with control and a hotkey for select hero and select all other units, which is in the advanced hotkeys. So just some little tidbit of how Arteezy micros on this hero, because of course it is really, really important on Lone Druid to have good micro. You basically have 2 heroes that you need to worry about, so if you don't have the hotkeys, then of course the micro is going to be very, very hard by default. Another thing that I want to point out about this laning stage is just how Arteezy plays the tri-lane versus tri-lane as a carry. So I would think that maybe in this lane you want to push the lane into your opponents and double wave them, just because they are 3 ranged heroes, 3 very kill focused heroes on the side of Plus Ultra. So basically pushing this wave into them would not allow Plus Ultra to have kill potential on them, because you're going to be trying to run into a creep wave that has 2 range creeps. It's going to beat the living shit out of you. This early into the game, those 2 range creeps and extra melee creeps really do matter for damage. You're not going to win that trade. So essentially it looks like EG is pushing into plus ultra, but what I want to point out about how Arteezy plays this lane is that he's not the one that's doing the pushing. Very little have I seen him put in any extra right clicks in the first 2 minutes into the enemy creeps. Like, he's not the one that's focused on pushing. The Spirit Breaker's tanking the creeps, which pushes it. The Rubik is using the Fade Bolt, which is going to push the wave. But Arteezy, he seems to have a focus on a perfect balance between harassing his opponents with the bear, but as he walks towards his opponents in this lane to harass them, and this isn't happening right now, this is something that we saw earlier, as he walks towards his opponents to harass them, he still has his camera focused on the lane creeps. So essentially, he is completely focused. As you can see, he's moving his camera to see what's up, to see if there's anything that he can contribute to, but he knows that his main job is to be that insurance policy and to just get farmed in this lane. So he is contributing, but only because it's good for him in this current moment. And even still, like, his camera would be focused like more so on these creeps if there wasn't this double wave pushing in and there's no creeps available for him. So he's essentially trying to balance harassing his opponents, potentially getting kills, and still getting all of that CS. Because if he can just outlast hit this Mirana, which I believe he is, then they are going to be winning this lane, despite it being a bloodbath down here. So another cool laning trick that Arteezy uses to win this lane in the game is that he sends the bear to the side shop, which is actually going to go home and function as a courier, picking up his components to build into the treads, to build into another Wraith Band, and then also a little bit more regen for this lane. So because of this, his mid laner gets to use the courier. As you can see on the mini-map, the courier is going to mid. So he essentially is abusing this fact that you can have your mid completely dumpster their lane by virtue of using the courier a shitload more times than the enemy mid will use it, and you don't have to use a courier on the lone druid at all because you have a bear which can just teleport home on a completely different cooldown than your druid. And then also, it's important to note that he does not build into boots. Lone druid is a hero who has very fast movement speed in the early levels, doesn't actually need the boots in the laning phase. You're not doing that much running around, you're just bouncing between their tier 1 and your tier 1, and the extra damage is going to help him totally crush this lane if Mirana tries to come back here. And you can see she's got 17, this is the core Mirana, only 17, 18, 19 last hits now that she's getting those last hits with the Star Storm, but essentially he's going to be able to completely dumpster this lane by just focusing entirely on these early game damage items. This is a common trend that I've seen. People building into the treads, they go for exclusively the damage component to it. They go for the Wraith Bands, even, you know, keep an Iron Branch for those extra stats if you can get it. Basically commit entirely to early damage, and then you can pull shit like this, where the Mirana just cannot lane against you because she does not have as many early stat items as you do. You know, one extra Wraith Band is honestly enough. One Blades of Attack is honestly enough that you're going to win that trading war, especially if you have that lone druid bear. Okay, so another really important concept that I'm noticing in this game is that Arteezy will completely ditch the lane in order to fight in this current meta, and I know that doesn't sound that mind-blowing or anything, but for a long time, carries would just completely ignore what's going on the map, and basically they would take farm because it's their job to take the space that's occurring on the map. It's all for them. But Arteezy runs towards fights. He even, as this fight is not necessarily going so well they kill Snake King, but the gank that he originally ran to, it didn't turn out to go well. He still runs to the mid tower, and they realize that they have enough people here that he can just sit here and contribute and take this tower. And this is something that I pointed out in the Miracle Anti-Mage video as well. Carries these days, they are not just sitting in the safe lane and farming. They're not even playing the sit in the enemy jungle and pressure while trying not to be useless and getting your own farm sort of playstyle. They are fighting. They are contributing completely. Before, what you would do as a carry is, like I said, you would literally just sit somewhere on the map, and your contribution would be that you're pressuring in a lane. Arteezy is doing that, but he's also picking and choosing his battles. If he sees that he can go mid and get a tower with the Dragon Knight ulti because he's close enough, he'll go do it. If he sees the enemy team overextending, he will go fight them, because he knows with these Wraith Bands, he knows with the hero that he's playing and the meta that we're in, it's actually of great value to contribute to these fights. Maybe 2 patches ago he's not going to do these plays, but in this current patch, it is absolutely necessary to fight in the early game. You're going to get a lot more. And with that being said, he also, because he sent the Blade of Attack, I just wanted to point this out, he is able to build the full power treads just from the side shop, which is pretty cool. So if you get that component early, then you don't need to worry about sending the courier back or sending your bear back a second time or anything like that. So it's just nice to get that component first rather than the boots or maybe, you know, one of the stat items instead, because you can just get that at the side shop, so you may as well just leave that to be the last component that you're going to build into it. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about mid-game. In terms of skill build, Arteezy maxes Bear first, of course, goes for 1 point in the Savage Roar just for the impact of having a stun and fear in the early game, and then he maxes out the Spirit Link, so very typical range lone Druid stuff, and he skips the ultimate at level 7, level 8 as well. His build is, you know, just these stat items plus a Javelin building into Maelstrom, and as soon as his safe lane becomes unoccupiable, so essentially the entire enemy team just starts to play around that area, he tried to defend it for a little while, just while he could, while it was low investment, but the moment it looked like it was a huge investment to defend that tower, he just sacrifices the tower in order to get his own farm in this top lane, where of course they have taken the tower, so now this is the safe place for him to farm. Very typical carry rotation, and Arteezy, you know, really sticking to his roots when it comes to playing the early to mid game as a carry. So the way Arteezy plays the mid game is pretty simple, but also incredibly important in my opinion for playing a good carry. And what he does is he basically just pressures up this top lane with his support sitting in the trees protecting him on the high ground. So he feels relatively safe doing this, but the moment he sees the entire enemy team back off, he is afraid, especially with that TP coming in. You can see his camera is on Snake King on the bot lane. He's afraid that, you know, they're getting gone on. He's correct. They are getting gone on. Enemy team kills the supports, and they end up dewarding this area that Arteezy wants to occupy. So he teleports out, and where does he go? Where pub lone Druids would probably go is to the bot lane or to their own jungle, because it's like, hey, I'm a carry, I want to farm, I want to be far away from the enemy team, they just killed my Spirit Breaker, we don't want to fight, so I'm going to go far away from them. But no, Arteezy TPs to this shrine area, because what his job is, what he wants to do is occupy the enemy jungle. He knows that he can get these towers if he sits in that lane. He knows that this bot lane is probably the most dangerous place for him because it's the dead lane. The enemy team is going to have vision down there. The enemy team is going to be playing around there for the most part, so he doesn't want to go down there. And this is what I see a lot of really good carries doing, is they will just constantly sit in the safest place possible. They will not go to that dead lane. The dead lane is for your tanky heroes or for your support heroes to deal with. So now that he's here, he's with his team, he has these early game items. Even though he's a carry, he still wants to contribute. And by the way, he goes for the level 10 talent plus 150 attack range instead of going for the true form. And he smokes up into the enemy woods. So basically he's back exactly where he wants to be, so he can pressure this tower, he can farm up the jungle with his team, he can occupy this area, which is going to give his backline a place to farm as well behind him. And he's very safe pushing in this lane and applying a lot of pressure this way. So, and then he's not playing in the dead lane where he can essentially just get himself killed and maimed. So I thought that was essentially really interesting. Just the fact that Arteezy, he doesn't just TP to like the farthest place away from the enemy team, because he knows that they're eventually going to rotate and play down there anyway. Look, Eternal Envy already here. Shaman already here looking for a kill with an Invis rune. If Arteezy goes down here, he is goddamn toast. So the rest of this game looked incredibly easy. It was an exact repeat of what we saw in the previous clip, where Arteezy was just playing in the top lane. His team was behind him or in the area where they would get gone on before him. If the enemy team went off the map, he would be super disciplined in running into the trees, and if running into the trees wasn't exactly safe enough for him, he would TP back to that shrine area. Essentially, EG were really, really good, and in particular, Arteezy was really, really good at reading when the opponents were making a move on him, and they backed off, Enemy team wasted their time. Eventually, Evil Geniuses took a huge gold lead. They take a fight. They took Roche. With the Roche, they took another fight, and then they won, and they took Rax, and here we are with Evil Geniuses' victory. So I think that it makes sense that essentially this game looked very easy for Arteezy. I think that's just the perspective of a carry player. Like, anytime you watch a carry, it doesn't look like they do much because your job really is to do this very simple thing of being that late game insurance policy that doesn't die, that's making the right moves around the map. Like, your entire job is to just be that unstoppable force for the enemy team, where it feels like you're just never dying. You get to a point where you're actually unkillable and you just have all the farm in the world. And the way that you do that is you just be incredibly disciplined about where you farm on the map and only doing it when it's absolutely guaranteed to be safe. You know, an offlaner, maybe it looks a little bit more advanced because like an offlaner is going to want to run into an unsafe area for a little bit to make space for their team. Maybe an offlaner wants to take some space. With carries, you basically are just taking space, and if the entire enemy team is missing, you just have to be disciplined in not showing yourself on the map. And that's what Arteezy did this game, and they won. He was that insurance policy, and as a result, they took a huge net worth lead. So, in any case, thank you so much for watching, guys. I do genuinely appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.